bringing us on to our sort of first sort of topic that we're going to discuss today is that you mentioned it in the introduction that not everyone is going to pass their Viva first time, and it's an experience that you went through as a trainee. But of course, it's not the end of the road to becoming a QP, so it doesn't mean it's actually a failure. It just means that you're human. So to get us started then, I suppose going back to all those years ago when you were going through your own training, what were the sort of main common challenges that you were facing in the training, in the modules to become a QP?
Okay, so there were both company challenges and personal challenges at the time. From a company point of view, I was working in contract manufacturing, so getting involved in issues wasn't really an issue. There were lots of issues day to day. But then having the time to look at the systems, having time to look at the processes was more of a challenge. For those of you, who work in contract manufacturing, it's always pretty hectic. Finding time for other aspects of the business is always a challenge. But then from a personal point of view, I started my QP journey when I was quite young. I was in my 20s when I started training to be a QP. And at the time, it seemed like I was incredibly young. I know there's more people going through in that sort of age bracket now, but I was definitely the youngest person on the courses at the time. And I made some good friends on the course. Some people I really looked up to and respected to, and I'm still in touch with now. But they seemed to, again, know a lot more than I did. They had more experience in the industry than I did. And I really struggled with confidence. So overcoming that was a real challenge that I needed to work on for quite a long period of time through my career.
Yeah, so essentially it was just confidence at that time, knowing your peers around you, maybe showcasing more levels of expertise.
That's it. And I think, I was questioning, this is a big responsibility, a big investment from the company to put me on this QP course. And could I actually do it? Was I the right person to be able to do it? What had they seen in me that they thought I could do it? And was I really just wasting their time? So I had that struggle while I was doing the course.
Yeah. What were the strategies then that you used to, I suppose, overcome that lack of confidence at the time?
So I don't think I really overcame it at the time, but what I tried to do was compensate for it. So I really put my head into the books, studied incredibly hard, learning technically inside and out all of the different technologies, the different manufacturing processes, so that on that side of things, I was incredibly good. To try and prove to myself that I knew it inside and out. That was the way that I dealt with that.
Yeah. And then heading towards your first Viva, can you share your experience of that, please?
Yeah, that's it. So I sat my first Viva when I was at Patheon, and like I said, I'd worked incredibly hard. I was compensating for my technical knowledge for the other areas. So I thought I need to prove it. But the Viva came at a less than perfect time. Patheon had just announced redundancies. My wife was pregnant, and we both worked at Patheon at the time, so we were both potentially affected by those redundancies. And so I saw passing the Viva is the only way really to keep my career going, put immense pressure on myself to get through it. I went into the Viva, answered all of the questions, but in the scenarios, I struggled. I knew I hadn't done as well as I hoped, but I was still hoping for ultimately a pass. And then I sat there, and after the wait, I was told I was unsuccessful. I can still remember that moment and the feeling. And the moment the world just seemed to absolutely collapse around me, I sat in the park outside the RSC, and lots of thoughts flying around in my head. How was I going to tell my wife? How was I going to go back to the office where they'd been saying, you'll be brilliant for months. Every time I said I had doubts, they'd be going, you'll be brilliant. You'll be a brilliant QP, and tell them I'd failed after all that money that they'd put towards the training. And then also, if I was made redundant and my wife was made redundant, how are we going to pay the mortgage? All of that was going through my head. And it was, one of the lowest points in my career, probably one of the lowest points in my life. There were a lot of quiet spells and a lot of tears that came following that.
Yeah. So there was a lot of factors around you in life, which I suppose piled up. and added additional pressure onto the actual Viva process, which you weren't expecting, you weren't prepared for, really.
No, that's it. And I think, some of the people that I work with now as mentor for their QP journey, maybe not quite the same, but there was somebody I was speaking to just last week. We were just having a catch up, and she's coming to the end of her training and feeling immense pressure to perform. And again, she's quite a young person, but got good experience, makes good decisions. And it's really just the confidence that's going to hold her back if she gets to that point. And so again, we just went through, right, what happens? And what happens if it goes wrong? It's not the end of it. You can pick yourself up and do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And in particular, then from that first experience, what did you learn the most?
So I think it's that. The first one is you have to and you can pick yourself up, but also that it wasn't the end of my career. What helped me the most was a great support network. And I think I'd recommend to anybody as a QP generally, have that support network. My wife was fantastic, as were many people back at the office. Mike Halliday at DBA, as it was at the time, also, he was a huge help. We sat down a few weeks later, talked through what had happened, and we just, talked about it. I learnt that although it was a massive knockback, nothing really changed. I was still me, still the person who, had been chosen to go on this QP journey, and still had that opportunity. It hadn't completely shut the door. There were still many more opportunities down the road, and I just needed to pick myself up from it and move on.
Yeah, so you were using the people around you then, in particular your mentors and people within the organisation, your wife, so family members, to, I suppose, pick you back up and react and put the plan back in place.
That's it, exactly. So yeah, use the people that you've got around you. Take some time out. It's gonna if you're in that unfortunate position for failing your Viva or being unsuccessful in your Viva, it's gonna hit you hard. You've worked on that for a couple of years at least. Your company's put a lot of investment into it. There will be pressure to get through it, and so it's natural that you're gonna feel like I did, devastated at the time that that's not worked through. But it's not the end of the world. You will get through it, and you can move on from it. I
Yeah,
know other people who have never taken it again, and I think I wish I could encourage them to do it, because I know that they'd make good QPs. But again, it's a personal decision if you do decide to do it again. I was quite keen once I'd thought about it. Actually, I do want to do this again and have another go at it.
yeah. So you've seen people then in your experience who have decided not to continue on.
That's it. Yeah, there's a few people I know who have not been successful the first time around, and then for whatever reason they've thought, yeah, I'm not going to do it again. Now, they might not have become QPs, but they've still become very successful quality professionals. They've still done all of that training that a QP's done. It's just that last piece that they've not fulfilled. So I think even if you do go down that route and you decide, yeah, I'm not going to do the Viva again, didn't like it the first time, you can still be very successful. I know people who are now very successful in big global companies who failed their Viva the first time, but it hasn't held them back.
Yeah. So most of these individuals still have a very successful career, either go into quality leadership or whatever it may be.
Absolutely, yeah. It still gives you, it's still really good training, gives you that mindset. It's just that hour. That's all it is that you've just not done as well as you could have done on,
Yeah,
and you've not come out the other side with that one badge saying, yeah, I've passed my Viva, but you've done all the rest of it.
yeah. Okay. And then to get to the point where you were prepared and confident again to go for the second Viva, how long did that take?
So I took about 6 months off from studying, first of all, and then I had a tie-in period at Patheon, which I worked through, which coincided with me getting a new job as the redundancies were still going on, then moved to Ecolab and then on to BTG. So probably about 18 months in total from the first failure through to actually sitting my second one again.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I had help from my family, Mike at DBA, my sponsor at Patheon, was stayed with me even after we'd left Patheon, and then I got a new sponsor at BTG, and I put a plan together. Only now, again, different challenges. Now I had a young baby in the house, which made studying more of a challenge. And I found the only time that I could actually study really was about 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning, something like that. I actually loved this time. I found it really peaceful, quiet. I could focus, and get some, maybe not as much study as I was doing before, but just get some quiet time, start of the day before I went in and did my day job.
Yeah.
And then I went for my Viva again while I was at BTG. This time, quite a different mindset. I hadn't studied as hard, but I was definitely more confident. The pressure I'd put on myself wasn't quite there as much. I'd told myself, fine, I'm going to do it one more time. That's it. I'm not going to do it again if I'm not successful this time. One more crack. Doesn't matter really what happens this time. If I pass, great. If I didn't, it's not the end of the world. And then in the actual Viva, I came across more confidently. I even gently told one of the assessors that they were wrong with one of the challenges they put to me. Again, I'd go carefully with people looking to do that. But again, I did it in a gentle way, just told them, no, I don't necessarily agree with that. And at the end, I sat for what seemed like hours in an incredibly hot room. I remember it was hugely hot for the Pharmaceutical Society, and was then told I was successful this time. And so rather than going and sitting in the park outside this time, I walked across to the pub and had a couple of pints to celebrate that time.
Yeah, I'm sure they tasted very nice.
That's it. And I also met and became friends with one of the assessors later on. So when I was at the MHRA, I announced I was inspecting a site. To maybe an hour later, I got a phone call through from their head of quality. And they said, right, I've seen you're coming to inspect us. Just to let you know, I was one of your assessors at Viva. I said, right, okay, fine. And the good one or the bad one? And he goes, oh, the good one. And I said, right, that's fine, we're good then. And we carried on. And we're now actually, we've since stayed in touch. He's now also a consultant, and yeah, we're friends now. That's good.
Excellent. Yeah, so a very rewarding second Viva experience.
That's it. Yeah, and I think, it just shows that even with challenging circumstances, I think you can do it. And I think, to me, the key bit was, I didn't know as much. There were times in the Viva when I had to say, I don't know, but I know where to find that. This is what I do to find out the answer. These are the people I'd speak to about it. Whereas before, technically, I knew all the answers. This time, just much more relaxed, much more confident in the Viva. Maybe not as technically as good, but came out of it with a more successful outcome. And I think that's part of what they want to see. They just want to see that you can make those difficult decisions when you need to, and that you do know where. Obviously, you need to know you're working within the boundaries of the law and the regulations. But it's really down to, right, when I leave you, are you going to be able to make that difficult decision in your company when something goes wrong? And I think that's, again, what I try and mentor my GTs with.
Yeah, yeah. But I think it's from what you just said is the importance of understanding the value of failing the first time, and then being able to have that second plan in place and ready to react. Is there any particular strategies that you would say as an example, more mock Vivas, just to practice being in that situation?
So I think, with the mocks, go through the questions, not just the ones that you know the answers to, but those ones that you don't want to get, those questions that you don't feel as confident with. So if you work in oral solid dose, maybe not have quite so many questions on that. Look at, okay, tell me about biologics, tell me about sterols, do some scenarios in those. It's the same as if I'm preparing somebody for an inspection. What are those questions you don't want to be asked? What are those ones that you're really nervous about? And just practice them.
Yeah.
And I think also, the same as before, have that support network in place. One of the biggest things from doing the QP training, whoever you do it with, is building up that network of people, both inside your company and outside your company. So I still, run things past people I met on my QP course saying, what do you think of this? Have you come across this before? And it just gives you a sounding board that's you're not working with directly, so you can have a confidential conversation with them around things as well. And I think that's one of the most important bits, is build up that network on your QP training as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, a lot of QPs give that advice, and it's not that it's understanding that you're not alone in this, and utilizing that network, and especially your trainees around you, because they're all going through the same experience at the same time.
Yeah, that's a really important point as well. Even if you feel alone. So at BTG, that was quite a small company. And there was sometimes I was the only QP on site, and you'd be there, and I'd passed my Viva at that point, and people thought, right, you now know everything. You've got your ticket. You must know all the answers to all the questions I'm ever going to have, and you really don't. And again, although I'd passed, I was now terrified for a different reason. I had that responsibility on the site of certifying the batches, but also of making those decisions. And it's important that even when you think you're alone, and you might be the only QP on site, that you're not, there are other people around. They might not be QPs, but they can still give you really good advice, and you should never try and do everything on your own. I think you'll make some dangerous decisions if you do.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing your experience, Phil. It's so valuable, and I'm sure it'll be very beneficial to the individuals who are going through this process right now, and it shows the value in hard work as well.
Yeah, no problem at all. No, thanks, Dal.